This is part 2 of Spong versus Spong, a defense of traditional Christianity. Now let's look at the word of the Lord. What are the scriptures? Are they the same as the word of the Lord? Writing that he understood the duration of the Babylonian captivity, Daniel refers to the scriptures as the word of the Lord. I, Daniel, understood from the scriptures, according to the word of the Lord given to Jeremiah the prophet, that the desolation of Jerusalem would last 70 years. Notice that Daniel defines the scriptures as the word of the Lord given to Jeremiah. That which is written there is the word of the Lord, a statement denied by skeptics. The scripture of truth. Daniel also quotes an angel speaking of the book or scripture of truth. But I'll show thee that which is noted in the scripture of truth, and there is none that holds with me in these things, but Michael your prince. Here we see the holy writings called the scripture of truth, or book of truth, not myth, not fiction, as some moderns claim. Why not take the testimony of these witnesses, who were there at the time, at face value? The scriptures say, when Jesus was taken into the wilderness to be tested after fasting, he recognized the authority of Scripture. Even the devil tried to twist the Scriptures to his advantage, but a right view of the Scriptures became Jesus' defense. If Jesus didn't believe the Scriptures were true, why would he have bothered using them 3 times as his defense? But Jesus told him no. The scriptures say people don't live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. The devil said, if you are the Son of God, jump off, for the scriptures say, he will order his angels to protect you, and they'll hold you up with their hands, so you won't even hurt your foot on a stone. Jesus responded, the scriptures also say you must not test the Lord your God. Get out of here, Satan, Jesus told him, for the scriptures say you must worship the Lord your God and serve only him. Right interpretation. The Sermon on the Mount was not about Jesus disagreeing with Scripture, but about a right interpretation. When Jesus said, but I say, he wasn't disagreeing with the Hebrew Scriptures, but was countering a legalistic letter of the law limiting of the Scriptures, which allowed loopholes whereby people could claim righteousness, even with evil hearts. Jesus expounded murder as including murder in the heart, revealing that verbal abuse differentiates between unrighteous anger and righteous anger. He recommended reconciliation and settling matters quickly, if possible, as the right way. Jesus expounded adultery as including a lustful look and careless touch, and that easy divorce is not the way. Jesus expounded bearing false witness as including making promises and oaths that we cannot keep. Jesus corrected a misinterpretation of the Hebrew Scriptures when some believed they allowed hatred of enemies, yet the Old Testament actually tells a different story. If your enemy's hungry, give him food to eat, and if he's thirsty, give him water to drink. If you come across your enemy's ox or donkey wandering off, be sure to return it. If you see the donkey of someone who hates you fallen down under its load, don't leave it there. Be sure you help them with it. So no, Jesus was not correcting supposed Old Testament wrongs, but popular wrong interpretation of the Hebrew Scriptures by those who thought they were righteous if they just kept the letter while breaking the spirit of the law. Jesus further explained this, quoting the Hebrew Scriptures. Now go and learn the meaning of this scripture. I want you to show mercy, not offer sacrifices. For I've come to call not those who think they're righteous, but those who know they're sinners. Some moderns declare that Jesus and the disciples broke the law, yet Jesus would disagree. The laws had a priority of rank, whereby mercy was given a higher importance, and so lesser laws could be bent or broken in order to show the more important attribute of mercy. Jesus allowed his disciples to eat a meal from a grain field. They were not harvesting a whole crop or stealing from a farmer, but just eating a meal. And farmers were obliged to set aside the corners of their fields for the poor or strangers to eat from. Some legalistic Pharisees condemned them for breaking the Sabbath. Jesus quickly called them innocent and explained the higher priority of mercy. But you would not have condemned my innocent disciples if you knew the meaning of this scripture. I want you to show mercy, not offer sacrifices. For the Son of Man is Lord even over the Sabbath. Notice that Jesus also added that he's Lord of the Sabbath, the author of the law, and as such, the one who would rightly understand its intent. As Emmanuel, God with us, Jesus was not just any other man, as some moderns claim, but also the Lord, Yahweh, of the Hebrew Scriptures. What about knowing the Scriptures? One of the great weaknesses of liberals is that they don't know the Scriptures very well. In fact, if you compare a conservative theology book with a liberal one, you may notice that the conservative work is usually filled with Scripture, and the liberal one tends to quote other liberals and very little Scripture that has not been twisted. The lack of scriptural knowledge is a partial cause of the error that so many moderns teach. Without a good understanding of Holy Scripture, no one can know the power of God. Jesus replied, "You're in error because you don't know the Scriptures or the power of God." Jesus replied, "Your mistake is that you don't know the Scriptures and you don't know the power of God." What about believing the Scriptures? One of the hallmarks of heretical modern theology is a lack of belief in the truth of the Scriptures. What do we say to Jesus when he upheld those very writings? When some of the disciples' companions couldn't find the body of Jesus because he'd risen, what did Jesus tell them? How important did Jesus treat the Scriptures when explaining things to the disciples? He said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow to believe all the prophets have spoken." And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the Scriptures concerning himself. They asked each other, "Weren't our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the Scriptures to us?" Then he opened their minds so they could understand the Scriptures. What did the disciples learn from Jesus teaching them after his resurrection? Did they learn from Jesus to disregard the Old Testament as myth? Or did they believe the Hebrew Scriptures? After he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered he had said this, and they believed both the Scriptures and what Jesus had said. Is trust in the Lord's Word just something for conservatives and fundamentalists? Or is it as old as the prophets? King David sang a song of praise, including words that describe the word of the Lord. As for God, his way is perfect. The Lord's word is flawless. Other translations describe the Lord's word as correct, proves true, tested, and proven. Who would we rather believe? David and his high view of Scripture, or moderns who treat the Bible as myth? Well, that's it for this time. Next time we'll move on to part 3 of defending historic Christianity. Until then, God bless you.